Hello. Welcome to my talk today. My name is Joseph Mbele. Those of you who follow my YouTube channel know me, and I don't need to introduce myself too much. But today is a special day. Yes, I have a very special guest. And I would like first to ask her to introduce herself.
My name is Lucienla Frutilong, and I use the pen name Lulu Kililuck. I am an author. It's strange to say it that way. I am an author, and Professor Mbele is my mentor. He's been guiding me through the process, and we are here just talking about the book and the experiences and the main issues that being an author and what we both are doing, comes up frequently in what we do as the questions on how to respond to society and cultural issues. So
Yes. We have just recently discovered each other. She's from Cameroon, I'm from Tanzania. We are both here in Minnesota. I'm in a different town, she's in a different town, but through a mutual friend, we got to know each other, and we have discovered we have similar interests in terms of promoting African culture, African identity, issues of the challenges we face in foreign cultures, and how to navigate those. And now today, we have decided to talk a little bit about the challenges of parenting as African parents. So that's what we would like to talk about today in this short video. So I guess that's enough for an introduction.
Yes,
in terms of what we want to do. So here we are. I'm from Tanzania, you are from Cameroon. We have raised our children here. We are raising our children here, and we have common experiences as African parents who were raised on the continent with our values over there, concepts of what is proper behavior, for the kids. And now we are raising the children here. It's a very different place. And we know fellow African parents who are watching this are in the same boat. They might be very curious to hear what we have to say. Yeah, that's the way I would start the conversation.
Okay.
Yeah. So what should we start with? Should we start with things like just what is proper behavior and how it is challenging for African parents who have a certain concept of proper behavior, and then here in the US they have a different concept of proper behavior. So, for example, I like to use this example a lot. The children in this country are taught, the proper way to talk to adults, to maintain eye contact.
Yes.
Things like that. Now, you are an African parent, and back in Africa, if the teacher, for example, summons the kids to the office, the kids were misbehaving and the teacher wants to tell them a few things. The teacher is angry. The kids don't look them in the eye. Now, imagine an African parent here,
Yes.
and they have their child here going to the American schools, and they are learning proper American behavior.
Yeah.
I don't know how our children are handling this. And yeah.
You know, that is what they know. They do not understand our culture of not looking at somebody in the eye. So they will practice their American culture
Yeah.
and looking at you in the eye.
Yeah.
The problem is with the parents. How are the parents handling those cultural differences?
Yeah. Yeah.
That are not basically, I know sometimes you find it rude,
Yeah.
but when you finally realize it is just, it has nothing to do with being rude.
Yeah.
It has nothing, it is just a different way of
Yeah.
expression.
Yeah.
Then it becomes better when we don't
Yeah.
stay stuck in that what we define
Yeah.
as rudeness
Yeah.
and carry it into another culture
Yeah.
to define that same
Yeah.
action in that culture as
Yeah.
rudeness. Yes.
Now the problem is this. The African parents come here, they are busy, they are working, and they have never, for example, studied those cultural differences. And so the children come home and they have these behaviors, and the parents have not had the opportunity to explore the difference. They might end up being very angry, very hard on the children, and because we respond very suddenly, very quickly to the bad behavior of children.
Yes.
You know, I'm talking to you and you are staring at me like that.
Yes. We are a little bit intolerant to that behavior.
Yeah. Yeah. And I've mentioned an episode, you know, like that in my book, The Africans and Americans book, where a student, an American student, came to my office to, I think I should say, complain about a grade, and she was looking at me like this. I was very angry, and that was a time when I didn't know the American ways.
Yes.
But I was really angry as an African parent, and I talk about it. So my point is, what do we do so that the parents, the African parents, from the very beginning, you know, they are knowledgeable and comfortable with the behavior of the African children here, who are behaving like American children?
Yeah, I would say some parents might not be happy to hear what I say, but this is my opinion. It is important for parents to know that they are in a different culture and to understand how things work in that culture. And if you have to raise a child in that culture, you also have to have an understanding of the cultural practices and norms within that culture.
Yeah.
Because this is not Africa.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean everything you're bringing from Africa it's not good, but you have to be able to identify certain values that are just culturally thought to be wrong when there is really nothing wrong with it.
Yeah.
And be able to create a balance between both cultures.
Yeah.
Don't throw away your African culture. It's absolutely important.
Yeah.
They create a balance, because you cannot just tell your child, looking at me in the eye is rude. They don't see any rudeness. They didn't say anything to you. They didn't insult you, because this is their culture, and that is how you use it. For them, not looking you in the eyes means that you are thinking of something fishy.
Yeah.
And they don't want to tell you they're fishy. They don't want to come across as being fishy, so they look at you in the eyes to show that. So those little differences in culture, we should be able as parents to understand them in order to minimize the conflicts that we have with our children as we raise them in this culture.
And there are many of those differences. The way the children talk, for example, which is appropriate in the American culture. They ask questions. They will challenge you. They challenge you.
Why? Yes.
And for an African parent who has just come from the village in Cameroon or Tanzania, that's infuriating. You know, that's infuriating.
How dare you ask me?
Yeah, and then the poor children, don't mean to be disrespectful.
No, they don't.
But then you have the African parent straight from a village in Cameroon.
Yes, finding that really
Yeah.
disrespectful. Yes.
Yeah, it's very hard. And then, as parents from Africa, maybe sometimes we forget that these children have not lived in the African village.
Yes.
We probably forget that. And so maybe there's a need now for the parents to be meeting actually to talk about these things.
I think so too, because
Yeah.
with our children, we are their only African experience.
Yes.
But out there in the world, they have
Yeah.
a multitude of people representing the American culture.
Yeah.
So, which is the dominant culture for them?
Yeah.
Is the American culture.
Yeah.
And you
Yeah.
are the singular source
Yeah.
of the African experience for them.
Yeah.
So it is important for parents also to give each other tips. How did they do? How did
Yeah.
they handle this situation?
Yeah.
And for parents also to be aware
Yeah.
of those differences and take them with ease, not with
Yeah.
anger as
Yeah.
we normally
Yeah.
react. Why did you say no? Well, so
Yeah.
it is important to.
Yeah, it is very hard. And what complicates matters is this. When these children now that are growing up and being raised here in the USA, African children,
Yes.
when they go to Africa now, when they go to Africa, there will be challenges there too. Because then the Africans will look at these kids and they will say, look at their bad behavior, you know. They might even think the African parent, the African parent, are irresponsible. You know, don't you raise these kids well? You know, they're here now in Cameroon or in Tanzania. Look at how they behave.
It's also incumbent on us to educate our people back there.
Yeah, it will
That
take time.
culturally it's not acceptable for them to be this way. Yes.
Yeah, it will take a long time. Yeah, you can just imagine, and then consider the situation of the kids themselves. They go to Africa, and they are seen as spoiled.
Yes.
Spoiled. They come here, they confront parents who might not have taken the trouble to understand that this behavior the kids are showing is actually proper
Yes.
in the American context.
Yes.
So the kid is here, the African child is here, they go to Africa, they're in trouble, they come to the home, they're in trouble, and then what do? They go to school, they are under pressure to conform to the American ways.
Yes. I think the kids are handling a lot of confused signals and mixed signals from all the different cultures that they have to contend with.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah. So the question then becomes, how do we help as parents? You know, I remember I gave a talk at another city, Mankato, and I've mentioned this talk in at least one of my books, and it was on parenting, and the people who attended were, you know, African parents, mostly mothers of the kids from Somalia, Ethiopia, Sudan, in Mankato. I talked, you know, using what I write in my books. I gave examples. I said, you know, just to give one example, in this culture, they expect parents to supervise the children. The kids are playing, they are going somewhere. They talk about supervision. And if the kids are just running around by themselves, then the American, you know, society thinks, you know, this is not proper parenting. But in Africa, it's different. At least the Africa we grew up in. In the village, children just run and disappear the whole day. They come home to eat and then they run again. And everybody takes care of them, every adult. When I was telling the parents this, they were quite surprised. And I told them, in Africa, you discipline children. Any children you see, you discipline them. And that in this country, you cannot.
No.
You cannot take a stick and whip a child in the neighborhood who is not your child, as we do in Africa. Those parents were looking at me and they were like, what's going on here? You know, they thought it was such a strange culture. But what I remember the most, there was a mother, a Somali woman, who asked me, what should I do now? I have my daughter here who is wearing jeans. And this was a Somali Muslim woman. She's completely covered, you know, the traditional way with her hijab and everything. She was asking me, and she was not happy at all. What should I do with my daughter? She's wearing jeans. Yeah. I had a hard time understanding, rather responding. But I did say, as parents, let's remember this is a different culture. They have their own standards.
Way of dressing, standards of modesty.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And as long as the kids are not breaking the laws here, we should just let them be.
Yes.
I said that. That's all I said. As long as your child is not breaking any laws, you know, they're just behaving properly according to the values of this place, don't worry about it. That's how I responded.
Yeah, you know, sometimes it's not because of this woman, but parents in general don't tell their children the truth. Most of them tell their children, I was always first in class. I was always the best.
Okay.
And they're putting their children under this pressure of must being the best.
Okay.
Or must be first and do just as good as your parents expect you to do. That is one of the issues that it's really difficult with parenting also. Because what you create by telling your child that lie is putting your child under pressure to perform at a certain level that they are not at ease with.
Okay.
Yes. So yes, so when they are under pressure, they don't perform well. When you let them be, that's my experience.
Okay.
They perform even way better than you expect. Yes, they perform. Yes, academically they perform way better than
you know,
expect.
that's very interesting.
Yes.
Because honestly, naturally, African parents would like to push the kids.
Yeah.
And push the kids. And as you say, in fact, I have had the occasion to talk with my daughters, and they make fun of us as African parents. They say, Dad, how come every African parent says they were the first in school?
Yes, that's a lie they tell their children, and it's not good.
This is very interesting. Oh, this is very interesting. Yeah. So maybe fellow parents will respond to this. What should we be telling our children?
Just tell them the truth.
Yeah.
Tell them the truth. If you were not doing good in school, say, I wasn't doing well. And because I know the effect of not doing well, that's why I don't want you to be in the same spot like I was. That way the children listen to you better than to come each time across as if you are some canonized saint still alive. Yeah. So parents should stop doing that. For me, I know that's one thing that most parents
That's a good idea.
They should stop. I raised my children. They are not perfect. They are not the best, but I raised them by not telling a lie about who I was and what happened to me when I was growing up.
Okay.
And it's actually helping. You see how my children and I see how we relate with each other. Very at ease. We talk about. I can call him. You don't see him coming being angry. Being true to yourself, your child will appreciate it more. That's my experience than trying to tell them about being the best. Yes, or not being giving them some standard of expectations that they should meet without actually looking at them and assessing their abilities. If they can do it.
And another thing African parents tend to do is to emphasize certain disciplines or professions.
Yes.
I was talking to my class. I teach at St. Olaf College. It's mostly a white school, but I do have occasionally, an African student. This last week, I have 2 or 3 African students in the class, and we were talking about something similar. African parents' expectations. I started the conversation, and one of the students, a girl from Nigeria, she added to what I was saying.
Yes.
And she says, yes, the African parents, they want you to be an engineer or a lawyer or a doctor. They will push and push and push so that you get into one of those professions. And I thanked her for adding, that kind of detail to the conversation. And I think the African parents who are listening to us, they can relate to these things, and they probably have those tendencies too.
Yes, they do it, but sometimes you can also think of where did that idea come from.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Those are relics of colonial administration.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, because before the colonial masters came, we did not have doctors, engineers, but we had people who could perform all of those services, and perfectly well.
Yeah.
But when they came with their system of education, and told us this is how we have to do it.
Yeah.
So we got stuck in that system of education.
Yeah.
We are only extending to our children what we know within this formal system of education.
Yeah.
So you have the parents, they will say that, and they are well-meaning.
Yeah.
It's not as if they have something. No, it is what they know and how it has been taught to them. Yes.
Yeah.
It's sometimes when we come here, we start seeing different ranges of professions that people can go into and become really way successful. Like I wrote in that Candy of Freedom.
Yeah.
I was such a good athlete. But I did nothing with that because at that time it wasn't considered as worth. Sports wasn't worth anything.
Yeah.
It was a waste of time.
Yeah. Yeah.
But if I had developed my basketball skills or my running skills or the high jump and long jump skills, that all those things that I was good at, handball skills, I would have been different. So if I grew up in this society, it might have been different for me. Yes, so those things also, where they're coming from with those demands really matter.
And then there are, of course, the different educational systems, the things the children are taught. And you and I know now in this country, in the USA, for example, issues of identity, what
there's 72 genders right now.
And I know generally African cultures and African parents, where we stand, on these issues. And in my book, actually in maybe 2 books, in the Africans and Americans book, I talk about expectations, gender expectations in the African cultures.
Yes.
And it's not diverse or complicated as it is in the USA now. And so I don't know how African parents handle this. For example, now, to be very specific, there's this LGBTQ plus agenda. And I know Africans back in Africa who are hearing us here, they are going to be very concerned. And I don't know. How should we handle this? Especially when these children that we raise up here, again,
they get exposed,
they will visit Africa, they will go there, and they will be alienated, So how should we prepare them, for example?
No, we shouldn't. Anyway, we should prepare our children that this is the way the reaction might be. But truth be told, our culture has taught us to be cruel to people who don't look like us,
Mm-hmm.
who don't do what they're culturally expected to do,
Mm-hmm.
and we don't realize that is cruelty.
Mm-hmm.
We hide behind the definition, it's our culture.
Mm-hmm.
Our culture does not talk about LGBTQ plus issues.
Mm-hmm.
So if anybody says it's our culture, it's a lie.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because it is not handled in our culture.
Mm-hmm.
Then we should sometimes I do understand, because it might be strange and scary for people who do not understand what that is really
Mm-hmm.
about.
Mm-hmm.
But we should remember that there's a lot of variety in creation itself.
Mm-hmm.
And we do not know
Everything. Uh-huh.
We are just living and experiencing creation around us.
Mm-hmm.
We do not know everything.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
I was also challenged, but when I got to understand, before Jesus came, because most people say, oh, I'm a Christian, oh, it is not accepted.
Mm-hmm.
Before Jesus came, there was LGBTQ plus issues.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Jesus taught and left us without talking about it.
Mm-hmm.
Meaning he understood that was part of creation.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That is the natural state of being for some of God's children.
Mm-hmm.
And he did not talk about it, he left. The only commandment, he said, love one another as I have loved you.
Mm-hmm.
He did not tell you to love this one and not love. He did not discriminate who to love.
Right.
And if we think that by the nature of our culture is to give out love, our religion is about love, then we should not be in that space where we think it is normal or it's our right to say anything derogatory about other people who do not do things the way we do, according to us, who do what we think is not right, because God himself, they might quote you certain things in the Bible, but Jesus said he came with a new commandment, he came in with a new era, and he did not touch it. So it is where it is.
I agree with you that I believe in creation, and I don't think within creation, within nature, there is uniformity, across the board. So we need to keep that in mind. I agree completely. And that has been my position also. I don't like people being persecuted, for who they are, because, there are certain obvious things that we see. The differences, not everybody has the same, physical abilities, for example. Not everybody. And so it could affect other dimensions of our life, including the gender, dimensions and so on. That part I have always said, should be taken care of in a positive way and accepted.
Yes, it's accepted,
Where I have issues is when people talk about choice. I think there it becomes too individualistic now, and American culture is individualistic.
Okay. Like choice in what sense? They choose to be who they are, or
I believe that the majority of human beings are, let me put it very bluntly, the majority are, I think, hetero.
Yes,
sexual.
That is a perception that we have. I always I use the word perception
I
because
believe
there are many people who are in heterosexual relationships who also are having the tendency of same-sex relationships. And because the culture does not welcome them, they struggle to conform into the heterosexual life. So that is the perception that we have. We think majority of the people are, but it's like we need to create an environment where people will be able to express themselves freely, and then this question of thinking that it is something strange they will realize it is not strange.
Yeah.
Because I will hear people say, oh, even in the animal kingdom, it doesn't happen. It happens in the animal
I
kingdom.
believe so.
And they don't have the same level of intellect like
Yeah.
us to
Yeah.
say we chose nothing.
Yeah.
Which
Yeah.
means, for me, it's
Yeah.
it's creation.
Uh-huh.
And this is how God has created the world. And this is how God has
Yeah.
created us.
Uh-huh.
It is not our place to tell God, oh, you did not create this person. Okay.
So my sense is this. I think culture or society is right if it places certain expectations, and in our traditions they had rites of passage, initiation, so that the young boys growing up were programmed or helped to develop in a certain way. The girls were helped to develop in a certain way, so that they can become, parents and perpetuate the clan, the family name. It is for the social, for the good of the clan and the society. And I think society has a right to do that. Societies have a right to do that. And so what I'm saying is, in the Western culture, say in American culture, the social obligations, the social imperatives have become less and less present, and it's now extreme individualism. Your life is your life. You are not accountable to anybody. You make your own choices. But our cultures, the African culture, are still communalistic. And so in my books, for example, I say it goes down to things like even the money that you have. You can't say this is my money.
No.
As Africans, there are so many social obligations which we acknowledge. There is an uncle over there who has a child, and they have a right to your money. Your time is not exactly your time. That's why people come and go at random. They don't even make appointments. They come and stay with you. We are more or less communalistic. And so even here now, you are growing up. Yes, you have your individual self, but you're also connected to the family, to the clan, and that's why I don't want to tell lies to the Americans, for example. If you go to African villages, for example, everybody will ask you, are you married? Or they assume that if you're not married, then you are actually looking for a spouse. And I've written this in my book.
Yeah.
Everywhere you go, if you look like you are, like 20s or 30s, people will assume that you are still looking. That's the assumption. So I'm saying culture has, I think cultures have a right to be that way. Now, if the American culture, they've chosen to let individualism take over, that's fine. They shouldn't impose those values of the individualistic culture on us. They shouldn't impose. We are not imposing our cultures
Our
on them.
communal culture.
So to cut a long story short, nature is nature. It has created a variety of people, and I believe the majority of people are, heterosexual. The majority, I believe. And they must respect the few individuals. It has to be a few. Not out of 100 people, 50 of them are this way. I don't think so.
And this is what I still go back to nature. We don't have the capacity to understand how God created people, or what they will become, or who they will become. We still do not have it. So I think our culture should learn to be flexible, because there are LGBTQ plus people in Africa, but because they are being rejected by the culture, I think, which is another form of cruelty that is practiced against them. To be who you are and you're being rejected by your own people, that's not okay. So when people say it's our culture, we have the right to be so. Yes, you have the right to be so, but I can walk away from you and don't look back. So don't expect yourself to reject me as an LGBTQ person, and then tomorrow you are telling me, oh, my child needs money for school. Can you send money for school fees? You are selectively accepting me. You understand? They're selectively accepting me for I am only useful to you when you need that money from me. But when it is me having to be who I am as I was created, you're rejecting. So that is why I would still stand and just ask people and Africans who keep saying it is our culture. It is not in our culture to take a good look at themselves. To take a good look, a hard look at themselves. Because this is not just only about LGBTQ people. This is the excuse that we use for things that challenge us within our culture. And then we when we have to behave in a way that we know it is not kind and compassionate, we explain it by it is our culture. Yes, when we take out compassion from what we do, we like, oh, it is our culture. It is our culture. So for me, I know it's a delicate subject, and people will be really pissed off with me for saying this. I know that, but really, I don't care.
And
LGBTQ people are God's creatures. They need love, just like you and I. We do need that love. So there is no way. I think it is acceptable for any culture to say. If you might talk about the political side of it, yes, the political side of it might have its own issues that are affecting it. Religion might take its own stance, but I'm telling you, no culture created water, no culture created earth, no culture created the sun, the wind, the moon. So it is just to tell you how limited these cultures are in the understanding of the universe as it is. So we don't even understand ourselves as human beings. So why should we think that we have the right to alienate another human being just because they are doing what we personally or as a community does not like? It doesn't make sense.
And I think we agree that the cruelty, the hostility is a problem.
Yes.
Because there are things we don't understand.
Yes, a lot of things we don't understand, yes.
And that's why I say I personally have, for many years actually, fortunately I studied in this country, University of Wisconsin, long ago. That's where I opened my eyes and, I understood that, there are people who are gay or lesbian or this. And I began to just say, okay, I'm comfortable with it.
Yes.
Because they are people and this is the way they are. I'm absolutely, comfortable with that. What I would like to think about and have clarity on maybe later is if it is just now free for all, that, to be just whatever you like, That's why you say that there are so many, how many identities now?
I think 72 genders right now.
And that was not the case like 2, 3, 4, 5 years ago. And it's going to get even more, diverse. That's where I get very skeptical, because then everybody will have their own. As time goes, every individual will have their own. Now, that is where I really have issues. That's where I have issues. That's where I say, no, society has a right to program the kids like they did in the traditional ways. Only we shouldn't be cruel, to use your word. Because the traditional, they were very uncompromising. And they must have suppressed and oppressed people who really genuinely needed an alternative lifestyle. But our cultures did not have. They didn't persecute them, did they?
Of course the traditions. They do. You did you know there were 72 genders?
No, I didn't.
It didn't bother you when you didn't know, did you?
It didn't.
It's just now that you're like, oh, there are 72 genders. It's not disturbing you from getting your monthly paycheck or it's your weekly paycheck. It is not putting food on your table.
No.
It is not depriving you of you living your own life
Yeah.
the way you
Yeah.
want to live.
Yeah.
So let's not deprive other people to live their lives the way they want to live, because now we are here in the US. People will complain, but all of these people, they pay their taxes. They have that I'm paying that taxes is the commitment, and it's their social convention with the state. So you pay so you can walk on this road. You pay so you can have good health care. They pay so they can walk on the same road.
Yeah.
They pay so that they can have
Yeah.
good health care. And if that is what is good health care for them,
Yeah.
they need that health
Yeah.
care.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And what is good health care for you? You need it. We all don't have the same illnesses. This one is high blood pressure.
Yeah.
That one might be arthritis. So it is. That is how I look at it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
like, look at Christianity.
Yeah.
It started with Catholicism. Let me put it that
Yeah.
way.
Yeah.
Now within the Catholic Church, how many traditions are there? There are about
Yeah.
20, I think 22 or 23 traditions of the Catholic Church. Then look at the other Christian churches that are all over the place. This is just mirroring what is happening with us as human beings. Is also mirroring itself in our society. So sometimes when we want to stay, we think that we can stay fixed with a certain people, with a certain people or certain group of people. We should realize that the whole society is evolving, and we are all mirroring each other. So it is not by stopping somebody to become another gender that society there will be less chaos in society. Yes, it is. It's just going to be that way.
Yeah.
Yes.
So for me, the issue boils down to what I said earlier: the difference between a culture that's individualistic, and now it's getting to be really extremely individualistic, and the cultures which are still essentially communalistic. And I guess that's where the issue, everybody, even the people who might be listening here, I guess, they should have an opportunity to reflect on this, because the problem is people are not talking about this, especially in our continent. Especially they're not even talking about it.
Yes. So,
yeah.
But we should learn to strike that balance between.
Yeah.
Because like in the Candy of Freedom, one of the things that I suffered more was because I approach so many things by looking at myself. I have this internal dialogue.
You're right.
I come from the individual me, and when I'm comfortable with that, I will be able to engage in the community. But if you force me into a communal situation without giving me the opportunity to process what me as an individual has to process before being there, I will be agitating in that situation because I am there, but I'm completely disconnected. So it's like the individualistic people and the communal people, they need to learn from each other.
Right.
Yes.
Right. And one thing I wouldn't support is the violence, the cruelty.
Yeah, no. It's
I think that should be out completely.
it should be
Dialogue, conversation, trying hard to educate ourselves, to try and reach, a level of understanding.
Yes.
Because everybody has a story.
Everybody has.
Every human being has a story,
Yes.
and people should not just be judged. And so even me, even I, the way I'm talking, I'm just expressing my questions, my doubts. I'm still on a journey.
Yes.
That I'm not where I am. I mean, I'm where I am, which is different from where I was 20 years ago. It's a very slow process. Nobody should be forced into anything.
No.
Yeah. And there is human rights also, the right to life.
Yes.
The right to life, and the right to the services you talked about.
Yes.
The hospital
Yes.
should not engage in discrimination.
Yes.
The bus system should take everybody. The stores should not deny somebody's service. But the conversation, the dialogue, should continue. And we don't have to agree on everything.
No.
But respecting, the different viewpoints.
The different, yes.
Yeah. And the same goes for, because we started off talking about how do we handle now these issues in terms of our children? How do we help our children process these issues? The children we raise up here as parents. Maybe what we have said here will help other parents have their own dialogue or think about these issues. Because I think of an African parent who just comes here, you know, the typical whatever that means, and then they can be devastated.
The cultural shock.
The culture shock is huge, especially on these matters. And so maybe our little conversation will help generate conversations like this.
Yes.
People will be upset with us. Some people will be angry with us.
And some people will be happy. So it is like that in life.
Yeah.
And one thing I wanted to talk about this LGBTQ issue is that in a way we have allowed politicians to run with the topic. I remember we were at the last talk that we had at the Maple Grove Community Center, and there was a gentleman who said, I greeted these two ladies who were sitting there, and one of them went and reported him for calling her a lady because the person was a they. Okay. A person is a they. So, and it is not obvious that somebody sees you and they would know that your preferred pronoun is they. And if somebody makes such an error, it is nothing to be angry about.
Yeah.
I keep repeating, and I call my children even by different names sometimes.
Yeah.
They'll be right in front of me before I get to their own name. I have called them all names on earth before I remember that this is a child's name. It is not because I love them less or I'm not accepting of them. Every segment of human society and every relationship, you have those issues that people may misidentify people. It is not something that because if you are LGBTQ and you are misidentified, you immediately take offense to. And for me, that is one of the things that I know is causing the tension-ridden relationship that people are having with LGBTQ plus people and its other society, the rest of the society as a whole. Is the tension that is in that relationship that is the problem.
Okay.
Yes, how excuse me, how they respond to the little mistakes. So excuse me. Nobody is interested in having a tension-ridden relationship. So if they make that error and you think you have to take it on them and you are angry, the person will gladly walk away. Excuse me. Not because you are LGBTQ plus, but because you are not having a good communication with each other.
Wow. So that's our conversation for today. Difficult subject, complicated, with a lot of things that are still unknown, I think.
A lot is unknown.
But I think we agree on the principle that respect and dialogue, and avoidance of clear violations of human rights, like violence against people, or killing people. Everybody has a right to life. There are certain fundamental rights which have to be respected. Even though we might have different views about issues like this, which are very touchy, we need to be respectful and attentive to each other's situation.
Just as some people don't like black people, some people will not like LGBTQ people.
Exactly.
Some people will not like Caucasians, some people will not like Asians. So there will always be this segment of society where this kind of vitriol is directed to. But people should not just think that it is only directed to a particular group of persons. And that's why I say we have allowed politicians to run with it. because they keep running with the idea that it is this kind of hatred is only directed to a particular group of persons, where it is something that we are experiencing in every subgroup of people that are in the community.
Which means, therefore, each one has to really look inside themselves to discover their prejudices. You know, some people will complain against racism, for example.
Yes.
The racists are terrible.
Yes.
But then they themselves, you know, hate.
Will not welcome their LGBTQ brother or sister, or they or them. Yes.
Exactly.
Yes.
Some people, they will say, we are religious, you know, and they really don't like atheists.
Yes.
You don't believe in God? You are terrible.
You are terrible,
So we all have, maybe we all have some issues to resolve.
Yes,
before we judge anybody else.
Yes, we do. I think it starts from...
or I'm a feminist. But then you could also be a racist.
Yes.
Yeah. So there's a lot of homework, you know, everybody needs to do. Anyway, controversial topics. This is one of those. And maybe we can, you know, stop here.
Yeah, we can stop here.
Thank you very much again.
And hope to have the courage to take the next topic again.
Next topic, someday.
Someday.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.